It's time for another movie review, and it's of the movie The Matrix Resurrection, starring Keanu Reeves and Carrie-Anne Moss. Now, this is the fourth film in the franchise. Now, for all of you who saw the third movie, obviously we know that Neo and Trinity die. So in this, we see them very much alive, which, if you've seen the movies before, obviously it is a bit weird as to how they're alive and whether or not they really are where they say they are, so to speak, or being in the Matrix. But obviously you do get your answers along the way. Now, right after about my thoughts on the Matrix franchise, really enjoyed the first one. I think the first one was perfection. Just great story, and then the special effects at the time were groundbreaking, especially with the bullet time and how they did it, and then every other film back in the 90s copied it. What I did like about the movie is obviously that the actual film grade, in the sense of that in the actual Matrix itself, it had a kind of a green tint to it, which for some strange reason on the Blu-ray version they took out but then put back in the 4K version of it. But anyway, and then obviously in the real world it's a lot more grittier. We then get the sequel, which was The Matrix Reloaded, which obviously went above and beyond in terms of special effects and action set pieces, and for me this is kind of where it lost its way for me. It became a little bit up itself. So in a sense of the scope of the fight scenes and the special effects in the Matrix Reloaded, for me it was really great, but in terms of the story, that's where for me it kind of dropped off and became kind of convoluted and became up itself. And then by the time we get to the Matrix Revolutions, which by the way, Reloaded and Revolutions were filmed at the same time. The first thing to do that was Back to the Future Part 2 and Back to the Future Part 3. For me, that's where for me it kind of really dropped off again. Special effects and action wise it was really good, but story, I mean, that's where it got a bit weak for me. Now with this one, I'm going to be honest, the first 40 minutes of it, I think it's kind of it's really weird in the sense that it doesn't almost feel like a Matrix film, because in this somehow Neo is a video game designer, and at first I thought the movie was just trying to be a parody of itself, of the other movies. So that's why I said that for the first half an hour of it, it's a bit weird, and it doesn't feel like, it wasn't the fact that you saw the characters and then the actors playing them, you wouldn't think it was a Matrix film. I would say the actual cinematography of the actual movie does feel different. Even with the previous three movies, they all felt like they were all part of the same movie, but with this one I'd say it felt a little bit different, considering that, as I said before, that the green tint that they used in the actual film thing wasn't actually in this at all. And obviously special effects have come a long way since the first movie compared to the fourth movie, but for me the Matrix had this certain feel to it which made it the Matrix, even in all the movies, even though for me they were weaker, but it felt part of that universe, as if it was on one continuous story, so to speak. When I can't put my finger on this, it just felt different. And so that's why for me watching the first 30 to 40 minutes of it were really kind of off. But then once the story kind of kicks off and then you find out what's really going on, and it's kind of really going on, that's when for me the movie does kick off. And as certain things were going on, I was worried about certain things as to how he's alive and how Trinity's alive, and to what happened to previous characters, and then was it connected to the previous movie. What I will say is that you do get your answers to that, so everything is pretty much answered. The only thing I think is a little bit weird, this might be a little bit spoiler alert, is obviously the stuff to do with Agent Smith. I wish that was explained a little better, which it kind of isn't. there isn't as much. There is action in it, but I would say that there is not as much action in the movie compared to the first one, and then especially with The Matrix Reloaded and Revolutions. As I said before, the special effects do feel different. Obviously, things have been modernised, but to me, I don't have a problem with them modernising, because obviously effects have come a long way. But there's something about what makes the movie The Matrix, for me, felt a little bit missing. And there's a lot more. Expect there to be a lot more dialogue in this movie, so that's why there's less action. There's more emphasis on romance in this movie. I don't know if that was the total intention of wanting to kind of do that. So that was something that I noticed in the movie. Now, as I said before, it felt like it was The Matrix, as I said before, but at the same time, it felt like it kind of wasn't. So to speak, I wish I'd done a little bit more with the new characters. One or two of them were kind of interesting, and there were things which they did explain about the actual characters, and then what happened in the previous Matrix movies. So at least that was tied up, because obviously many years have passed by. As I said before, it's explained how Neo and Trinity are alive, and how they got brought back. So I thought that was good in a sense, because there's nothing worse when certain things happen to characters and it's never kind of explained as to how, and all this plot holes. And it does, a lot of things that they do explain and wrap up do make a lot of sense. So I liked it in that kind of a way. You're kind of expecting a kind of a climactic kind of an ending. You kind of don't kind of get that. What I would say that was a little bit, for me, was a bit negative about it is, it was negative and positive at the same time. Is that to me, to what they did with Neo in it, to me, it felt like they just weakened him, and I don't want to kind of get into kind of why, but it does involve Trinity. In terms of what they did to Neo, it kind of makes sense in a way that he's not going to be fully powered the way he is, because obviously so many years have gone by and he just hasn't forgotten the way he was. But it just felt like they kind of just weakened him on purpose. It would have been great if the character had started off weak, but then obviously slowly gets back into the groove and starts remembering things, and slowly starts getting back to the Neo that we all love and know, which kind of happens at the very end of it. But I don't know if the way they ended it, where they were ending it in a sense that they were hoping that maybe that it would maybe kick the franchise back into gear again, and then they'll start making a new trilogy. I don't know if that's what the hope was, but yeah, I know that this movie's been getting, some people have been giving a lot of hate. As I thought, these are the problems I have with it, where in a sense it didn't feel like the Matrix movie. It lost its kind of it's like, it's hard to describe, but there's certain things of the way that made it the Matrix, but it feels like in this movie that it's kind of missing. But as I said before, what I did like about it was after the ceasefire with the machines, to me, I've always found it curious as to what happened with Zion. What happened with Zion? Was there peace? Was there war? All that's kind of explained. A couple of negative things in the sense that you don't see some of the classic characters, and I don't know why some of them weren't in it. I don't know if they were busy filming or they weren't asked to be part of the movie, etc., etc. But that's kind of a shame. But yeah, I didn't mind it. I mean, as before, I thought the story, in the sense of how it was explained and how it was going on, I thought was good in the sense that it was more fluidic compared to the Matrix Reloaded and Matrix Revolutions, especially with the Matrix Reloaded with the architect and all that thing, where it came up its own backside touch bit. It felt more like a proper story. But as I said, what kind of lets it down is that it is a lack of action, or it's loss of what they've done with Neo, or the Matrix movie kind of felt like it lost a little bit of its identity that made it the Matrix. That's the only, when it comes to the action set pieces. So that's for me what let the movie down. But in terms of the story, I kind of enjoyed it, but in places the story was a bit weak. If I had to give it a 10, I probably would give it, I would just about give it a 7. As I said before, if you can probably find some streaming sites for free, which is I downloaded it off of Sky Cinema on Sky, so that's how I saw it. Would I pay full price for it? Probably not. But if it came down, if I saw it on Sky, and basically eventually when it comes down in price, maybe second hand, I probably will still buy it to add to my collection, to my Matrix movies. But yeah, I mean, it would have been interesting to see what they would do if they had another sequel, and whether or not they would expand upon you know, the story from this one. But as for, yeah, the stuff with Neo, for me, I think the way they treated the character, I think was a little started off alright, but then for me, as I said, was a little bit disappointing in the way they kind of dealt with his character, considering how we've seen the growth of the character from the first Matrix movie to Reloaded to Revolution. So that was a little bit of a disappointment for me. But yeah, that's my review of the Matrix Resurrection. So I hope people like this review. Please feel free to share and to like with your friends, and also if you can give the video a like. You can find me on YouTube because of the YouTube algorithms. If you already haven't subscribed, please feel free to subscribe, and I'll speak to you all again soon. So take care, bye for now, and wherever you are in the world, please stay safe.